Okay, today we're going to take a look at first look at Unity.Custom, and we're going to start by looking at the general namespace, and we're going to be looking at the BulletManager class and the ShootableComponent class, and these are going to be responsible for all of our ballistics within our game. So basically we're going to be looking at first-person shooter environment. So your BulletManager class is going to be responsible for firing the bullets, and your ShootableComponent class is going to be responsible for handling the event attached to any game object that we want to be able to fire at and shoot. So we've got a basic environment set up here, which is a empty first-person shooter. If we have a look, see what we've got. Cursor on the screen and first-person shooter component. That's basically all we've got. So we need to start by being able to fire bullets, and to do that we need to be looking at our first person controller, and we need to add a script to it. So we will create a new script and we'll call that player. Right, that's done that. We'll add that to the first person controller and we'll open that up. Reload. Okay. So what we're going to need to do is first we need to get access to the namespace. So using Unity.Custom general, that'll give us access to it. And we need to be checking that that the mouse button has been pressed. So if input, get mouse button down, 0. So that is going to, every time the mouse button gets pressed, we're going to want to fire a bullet. To do that, we're going to be using the BulletManager class. So BulletManager, fire bullet. And as we can see, we need to give it the position the bullet was fired from, the direction it was fired to, the maximum distance of the bullet, and the amount of damage the bullet does. We're going to be using the overridden version because we need to be passing the position. That'll become evident later. So first off, where are we firing it from? We need to be firing it from the camera position. So camera main transform position. The direction will therefore be the camera main transform forward. The distance, we'll make it 100 meters maximum distance, and we'll apply bullet damage of 1,000. The source here is going to be the location, which is going to be the same as the camera position. That'll become evident why we're using that later, but for the sake of it now, we'll just camera main transform position. And we'll save that, and that's all we need. So we press the mouse button, we fire a bullet. We'll now go back into Unity, let that compile. Now the other side of it is going to be any game object that we want to be able to hit. That's now going to fire bullets, but without anything. If we just run it, it's going to work fine. We can press left button and it's firing, but there's no fireable, no objects in the scene which we want to be able to apply damage to. So it's not actually going to be doing anything. So if we create a empty cube, place that in our scene, we'll apply a rigid body to it, and we'll then create a new script. Create a script and we'll call this cube. Let that compile. Yep. We'll then add that to our cube. We need to have access to our namespace again. Unity Custom General. and we're not going to need any of that, so all that can go. Now we're not using the standard mono behavior for this component. We're going to use ShootableComponent, and that contains one method, the onHit method, which is the event that will be called when the object is hit. So simply test this, we will say object destroy game object. So this method is going to be called every time that the object is hit by the bullet, and all it's going to do is destroy it. So we'll have a look, see what happens. That's compiled. If we now run it, we have our object. We press fire on everything else, nothing happens. If we press fire on it disappears. So there's the basics of how the system works, but obviously we're going to want to do more than just make it disappear. So if we go back to our player class, we have the source, which tells us we set the source as just the position of the camera. So we can then use that. So if I go vector3 position equals vector3 source. So we're casting back to a vector3. That will then give us the position of the camera. We can remove that. And we could then say vector3 direction equals the position of the cube, which will be game object transform position minus the position of the camera, which is the position. We then take that direction and normalize it. We can then use our rigid body, add force, and apply direction to it. We'll times that by the amount of damage that the bullet was sending. So damage. Okay. Save that. Go back and let it compile. That's now compiled. So if we run it now, that's now going to apply force to the object. There we go. You can now bounce the object about and apply force to it. Now, at the minute we're using the damage to say how much force we want to apply to it, but obviously we could add health to the component and say we want to remove X amount of health every time it gets hit. We can also, instead of allowing the BulletManager class to handle everything, we can manually apply force, apply damage to our game objects ourselves. So if we create some more game objects, duplicate these, duplicate, and we'll duplicate another one. We'll get all of them, duplicate them there, and we'll duplicate them again. We can now, we're hitting each individual one as we would expect. If we go back into our player class, and instead of having the left mouse button, we say if input get mouse button down 1, so using the right mouse button. The Bullet Manager class will also return our raycast hit, so we can use the raycast. So raycast hit equals, and we'll do the same as that. Copy and paste that there. We can then use get the vector 3 position hit will be our raycast hit and the point at which it hits. So we could now say game object, get an array of game objects, all objects equals find objects of type game object. That's now going to give us an array of all the game objects in the scene, so we can iterate through them all for each game object. So geo in all objects, and we can check to see if the distance is, so we'll say vector 3 distance is less than 20. We need to put no. So the position where it hit, which was the position hit, and the position of all the other game objects. So game object transform position. So if it hit within 20 meters of the game object, we want to do something. So we will apply the same hit to it, so we don't actually have to hit it. So we can then go Bullet Manager and use hit, the game object, any game object, the amount of damage, we're still going to apply the same 1000 damage, and that is going to be the position where it was hit. So say pos hit. I think that's all we need. So if we run that, I don't think that's right, but we'll see what we've got. Right mouse button, yes. Yep, that's right. So now, if we use the right mouse button, it's applying the hit directly to each game object. So we've effectively got explosions. So there we are, there's the basic idea of how we do ballistics by using our Bullet Manager class and our ShootableComponent class. That's it for today. Thank you.